The woman had grown into her role slowly. She never thought of herself as important. She still dressed simply and spoke softly. Wealth never became her identity. Responsibility did. Every decision she made carried the memory of the old man and the reason. She was trusted. She spent much of her time listening to farmers, workers, elders, and young people. She believed that listening showed respect, and respect built trust. Problems were solved not by force, but by patience. There were mistakes along the way. Some decisions did not work as planned. Crops failed during one season. A project meant to help many ended up helping fewer than expected. She felt disappointed, sometimes even guilty. On those nights, she sat alone and questioned herself. During one such night, she visited the old man's small house. It was kept just as it had been. She sat in silence, letting the quiet speak. She remembered his calm eyes and steady voice. She realized he never expected perfection, only sincerity. The next day, she corrected her course. She learned from errors instead of hiding them. People noticed. Trust grew stronger. New challenges came from outside the village. Business offers, partnerships, and promises of fast growth arrived. Some were tempting. She read every detail carefully. She declined many of them. Speed, she believed, often damaged what patience built. Some outsiders criticized her for moving too slowly. She accepted that criticism calmly. She knew her purpose was not to impress strangers, but to protect what had been entrusted to her. The younger generation in the village watched her closely. They saw a different kind of leadership, one based on fairness, not fear. Slowly, they began to carry those values forward. She started small learning spaces where young people could ask questions, learn skills, and speak openly. No one was forced. Participation was voluntary. Respect was the only rule. Elders were invited to share their experiences. Stories were told. Mistakes were admitted. Wisdom was passed quietly from one generation to the next. The village began to feel like a shared home rather than a collection of individuals. One evening, a traveler passed through and asked about the farmlands. Someone told the story of the old man, not with drama, but with honesty. The traveler listened and nodded. That story traveled further than land or money ever could. The woman never corrected anyone who praised her. She never accepted praise either. She always redirected attention to the lesson. She often said that the old man gave her nothing new. He only showed her what she already believed. As she grew older, her steps slowed slightly, just as his once had. People noticed and began offering her help. She accepted it with gratitude. She understood now how difficult it was to receive kindness. One afternoon, she saw a tired, elderly person resting by the road. Without hesitation, she stopped, offered water, and sat beside them. No one was watching. No reward waited. In that moment, the circle felt complete. The story did not end with wealth or power. It ended with continuity, with values passed on quietly, long after both of them were gone. People would still speak of a village that learned, slowly and imperfectly, that kindness was never wasted, and somewhere in that story lived the truth that one simple act, given freely, could change many lives, including the one who gave it. The years continued to move forward, steady and quiet. The woman no longer thought about her life in terms of before and after. Everything felt connected now, like a long road where each step mattered. She understood that change did not arrive as a single moment. It arrived through daily choices, repeated again and again. The village had grown used to her presence. She was no longer a surprise or a topic of gossip. She was simply part of the rhythm of life. People came to her with problems, but also with ideas. They had learned that she listened carefully and spoke honestly. When she said yes, it meant something. When she said no, it was explained with respect. She encouraged people to solve issues together instead of waiting for her to decide everything. At first, some resisted. They were used to authority giving orders. But slowly, they learned the strength of shared responsibility. Meetings were held under trees, in open spaces, where everyone could speak. Not all voices were confident, but all were heard. One season brought heavy rain that damaged several fields. Crops were lost, and fear returned to the village. Old worries rose again, reminding people how fragile life could be. The woman walked through the fields, listening to concerns. She did not promise quick fixes. She promised effort and fairness. Together, they planned recovery. Some land was replanted. Some losses were accepted. No one was blamed. The process was slow, but it kept the community together. When the next harvest came, it was smaller, but it was shared in a way that felt right. She noticed something important during that time. People helped one another without being told. Food was shared. Work was divided. Support appeared where it was needed most. The lesson the old man left behind was no longer just a story. It had become behavior. As she grew older, her energy changed. She could no longer move as quickly as before. She accepted this without fear. She knew seasons changed for people, just as they did for land. What mattered was preparing others to continue. She began guiding younger villagers quietly, not by teaching from above, but by walking beside them. She showed them how to listen, how to wait before reacting, and how to choose people over profit. Some learned quickly. Others struggled. She was patient with all of them. There were moments when she felt tired of responsibility. On those days, she walked alone to the edge of the fields, where the land met the sky. She remembered the old man standing quietly, watching, learning. That memory gave her strength. Visitors still came occasionally, drawn by stories of fairness and calm leadership. Some came with good intentions. Others came looking for advantage. She treated them all with the same honesty. Many left understanding that this was not a place to exploit. The small house at the edge of the village remained unchanged. It was repaired when needed, but never transformed. It stood as a reminder that simplicity held power. People often passed by it quietly, almost respectfully. One afternoon, a child asked her why the old man chose her. The question was innocent, but deep. She thought carefully before answering. She said that sometimes life chooses people who do not expect it, because they act without waiting for reward. The child nodded, not fully understanding, but feeling the truth in her words. As time passed, stories of the village spread not as rumors, but as examples. Other communities asked questions. Some adopted similar ways. Others tried and failed. The woman never claimed credit. She believed examples spoke louder than explanations. In her later years, she reduced her involvement in daily matters. She trusted those she had guided. Watching them make decisions, sometimes imperfect ones, brought her quiet joy. She knew mistakes were part of learning. One evening, as the sun set gently over the land, she sat outside her home, breathing slowly. She felt at peace. Her life had not been easy, but it had been meaningful. She thought about the first time she offered water to a tired old man by the road. That simple moment had shaped everything that followed, not because of what it brought her, but because of what it revealed about who she already was. When she eventually grew too tired to continue, the village did not panic. They gathered, supported one another, and carried on. They knew what to do. Her story, like the old man's, did not end in wealth or titles. It lived on in habits and choices, in the way people paused when someone struggled. And so the circle continued, quietly and steadily, reminding anyone who listened that real change begins with seeing another human being and choosing kindness. Even when no one is watching, time moved forward in gentle waves. The woman was no longer involved in every detail of village life, but her influence remained strong. Decisions were now made by groups, not individuals. People discussed, disagreed, and learned to reach understanding together. It was not perfect, but it was honest. She spent more time observing than guiding. Sitting quietly, listening to conversations, she noticed how naturally kindness now appeared. A helping hand, a shared meal, a pause to listen. These moments no longer felt special because they had become normal. Some mornings, she walked slowly through the village paths. Her steps were careful now. Children greeted her with respect, not fear. Elders nodded to her, seeing her as one of their own. She belonged to the place not because of land or wealth, but because of shared history. The old man walked slowly along the dusty road every morning, using a wooden stick to steady his weak legs. His back was bent, not just from age, but from years of hard work under the sun. People in the village saw him often, yet no one truly noticed him. To most, he was just another poor, useless old man who had nothing left to offer the world. His clothes were clean but old, patched many times, and faded from years of washing. His shoes were worn out, thin soles that barely protected his feet from the stones on the road. He lived in a small house at the edge of the village. The house was simple, built long ago, surrounded by dry land and a few old trees. The paint on the walls had peeled off and the roof made small sounds at night when the wind passed through. Many people believed he lived there because he had nowhere else to go. They thought he was lonely, weak, and poor. In truth, he was lonely by choice, and his simple life was not forced upon him. But no one cared enough to ask. Every morning, the village slowly came to life. Shopkeepers opened their stores, farmers walked toward their fields, and children rushed to school. The old man walked among them, but it was as if he was invisible. When he passed by the shops, no one greeted him. If he stood near a store, people assumed he was begging and turned their faces away. Some even whispered unkind words, calling him a burden or a waste of space. He never argued with them. He never defended himself. He simply nodded politely and continued walking. Inside his heart, however, he felt the weight of their behavior. Not pain exactly, but disappointment. He had seen how people changed over time. Years ago, this village had been kinder. Or perhaps people had always been the same, and he was only seeing the truth now. The old man had once been strong. In his younger days, he worked the land from sunrise to sunset. He planted seeds with his own hands and waited patiently for them to grow. He believed in hard work, honesty, and patience. Over many years, his land had grown, his harvests had improved, and his efforts had paid off. But he never liked showing wealth. He believed money should be quiet, not loud. That belief stayed with him even now. As he walked, he often stopped to rest on a broken bench near the market. The bench was cracked and uneven, much like the way people saw him. From there, he observed the village. He watched how people treated one another. He noticed who smiled only when it benefited them and who ignored others when there was nothing to gain. He said nothing, but his eyes remembered everything. One afternoon, the sun was harsh, and the air felt heavy. The old man stood near a food stall, not to ask for food, but simply to rest. The smell of fresh bread filled the air, and his stomach quietly reminded him that he had eaten very little that day. He did not ask for help. He waited, hoping maybe someone would offer kindness without being asked. People passed by him again and again. Some looked at him with annoyance, others with suspicion. A few moved away, as if kindness were something dangerous. The stall owner noticed him and frowned. He thought the old man might scare customers away. Without saying much, he told him to move along. The old man nodded, thanked him politely, and slowly stepped away. Moments like these were common. He was used to them. Still, each moment added to a quiet sadness he carried deep inside. Not because he lacked food or money, but because he saw how easily people forgot compassion. He wondered when kindness had become something people only offered when they expected something back. As evening approached, the village grew quieter. The old man returned to his small house. He prepared a simple meal, just enough to survive the day. He sat alone, listening to the sounds outside, thinking about his life. He did not regret his choices. He believed every experience had a purpose. Even loneliness taught lessons. That night, as he lay down to sleep, he thought about the people of the village. He wondered if anyone would ever see him beyond his appearance. He wondered if anyone would offer help without knowing who he truly was. These thoughts stayed with him as he closed his eyes. The next day, he woke up early, just as he always did. The routine kept him grounded. He washed his face, fixed his clothes, and stepped outside. The morning air was cool, and for a moment he felt peace. He walked the same path again, knowing exactly what to expect. Or so he thought. He did not know that this ordinary day would slowly begin to change everything. He did not know that someone would finally look at him with real eyes, not judging eyes. For now, he was still just the forgotten old man, walking quietly through a world that refused to see him. The morning moved slowly, just like the old man's steps. After walking through the market area, he felt more tired than usual. His chest felt heavy, and his breathing was not steady. He stopped near the roadside and leaned on his wooden stick, waiting for the weakness to pass. People walked by, busy with their own lives. Some noticed him, but no one stopped. They assumed he was only resting, or they simply did not care. Not far from there, a young woman was finishing her work for the morning. Her life was not easy. Every day was a struggle, but she never complained. She worked honestly and earned just enough to survive. She believed that even small kindness mattered, because life itself was already hard for many people. As she walked past the road, she noticed the old man standing alone, looking unwell. At first, she hesitated. Like everyone else, she had seen him many times before, but never spoken to him. Yet something about the way he stood there, silent and tired, made her stop. She did not see a beggar. She saw an elderly human being who looked like he needed help. That simple thought changed everything. She walked closer and gently asked if he was feeling all right. Her voice was soft and respectful. The old man looked up, surprised. It had been a long time since anyone had spoken to him with concern. For a moment, he did not know how to respond. Then he quietly said that he was just feeling weak and needed a little time to rest, without making a show of it. The woman offered him a bottle of water she was carrying. She did not ask questions or make assumptions. She simply handed it to him and waited. The old man accepted it slowly, his hands shaking slightly. He thanked her, and his eyes reflected a mix of gratitude and disbelief. She noticed his condition and suggested, "Sit down somewhere shaded." Nearby, there was a small tree offering some protection from the sun. She helped him walk there, matching her pace to his slow steps. No one else paid attention. The world continued moving, as if nothing special was happening. They sat quietly for a few moments. The old man drank water and caught his breath. The woman did not rush him or make him uncomfortable. She understood that sometimes silence was also a form of kindness. After a while, she asked if he had eaten anything. He answered honestly that he had not eaten much since the night before. She thought for a moment, then reached into her bag. She had packed some simple food for herself. It was not much, but she broke it into 2 parts and offered one to him. The old man tried to refuse at first, not wanting to take from someone who looked like she had little herself, but she gently insisted, saying she would eat later. As he ate, the old man felt something he had not felt in a long time. It was not just the food that warmed him, but the care behind the gesture. He looked at the woman and wondered why she was different. She did not know him. She did not know his past. Yet she treated him with respect. They began to talk, slowly and carefully. Nothing deep at first. She asked where he lived and whether he had family nearby. He answered simply, saying he lived alone and preferred it that way. He did not mention his land, his wealth, or his past success. He spoke like an ordinary old man because that was how people saw him. The woman listened attentively. She did not interrupt or judge. She shared a little about her own life, about working hard and trying to stay hopeful despite difficulties. Her words were honest, not dramatic. The old man recognized strength in her simplicity. As time passed, he realized something important. This woman was not helping him to feel good about herself or to gain attention. Her kindness was quiet, natural, and sincere. That realization stayed with him deeply. Before leaving, she asked if he would be okay walking home alone. He nodded, though she could see he was still weak. She offered to walk a short distance with him. Together, they walked slowly. People passed them, surprised to see someone helping the old man. But no one said anything. When they reached a point where their paths separated, she wished him well and reminded him to rest. She did not ask for his name, nor did she expect to see him again. To her, helping him was simply the right thing to do. The old man stood there for a while after she left. He felt something shift inside him. For years, he had watched people ignore him. Now, One simple act of kindness had reminded him that goodness still existed. As he continued toward his home, he thought about the woman. He did not know why fate had crossed their paths, but he felt certain that this meeting was not meaningless. He decided that from that day on, he would pay close attention. That evening, as he sat alone in his small house, the old man replayed the day in his mind. The water, the food, the gentle words, all of it mattered. He smiled softly to himself, something he had not done in a long time. Outside, the village settled into silence. Inside, a quiet bond had been formed. The woman went back to her life, unaware that her simple kindness had touched a life far deeper than she could imagine. And the old man, once forgotten by everyone, now carried a new sense of purpose as he waited to see what tomorrow would bring. The days after that meeting passed quietly, but something had changed for both of them, even though neither spoke about it. The old man continued his routine, waking early, walking through the village, and returning home before sunset. On the outside, nothing looked different. Inside, however, his thoughts were no longer heavy in the same way. The memory of the woman's kindness stayed with him, turning to his mind again and again. He noticed the village more closely now. He paid attention to how people treated one another in small moments. He saw impatience in crowded places and cold looks when help was needed. At the same time, he noticed rare moments of goodness, small and quiet, often ignored. These observations had always been part of his life, but now they felt more personal. A few days later, he saw the woman again from a distance. She was working, focused and serious, her hands busy and her posture tired but steady. He did not approach her. He did not want to make her uncomfortable or turn her kindness into a burden. Instead, he watched quietly, feeling respect grow inside him. He realized she lived a hard life. Her clothes were simple, her movements careful, as if every step mattered. She worked long hours and never wasted time. Yet even with so little, she had shared what she had with him. That thought stayed with him deeply. One afternoon, the old man felt stronger than usual and decided to walk a little farther than normal. His legs still hurt, but his spirit felt lighter. As he walked past the fields near the village, memories from his younger days returned. He remembered planting seeds, working under the sun, and believing in patience. Those fields were once his life. Some still were, though no one knew it. He stopped near a fence and looked across the land. The crops were growing well. People working there did not recognize him. To them, he was just another old passerby. He smiled slightly, not with pride, but with calm acceptance. He had never wanted recognition. What mattered to him now was understanding people's hearts. Later that day, he passed by the same road where the woman had helped him. He stood there for a moment, remembering how weak he had felt and how easily she had offered support. He wondered how many people she helped without anyone noticing. He wondered how many times she chose kindness when she could have chosen comfort instead. Their paths crossed again, sooner than expected. One evening, as the sun was setting, the woman noticed the old man struggling to carry a small bag of groceries. Without hesitation, she walked over and offered help. This time, there was no surprise in his eyes, only quiet gratitude. He thanked her and accepted. They walked together slowly. The conversation was simple. They spoke about the weather, about work, about how quickly days passed. There was no pressure, no awkwardness. It felt natural, as if kindness had created a bridge between two very different lives. The old man listened more than he spoke. He learned about her routine, her tired mornings, and her hopes for a better future. She did not complain. She spoke calmly, as if struggle was just another part of life. He admired that strength. At one point, she apologized for not being able to stay long. She still had work to finish at home. He told her she owed him nothing. Her help, he said, was already more than enough. She smiled politely, not realizing how deeply her actions were affecting him. That night, the old man sat alone in his house thinking. He asked himself questions he had avoided for years. What was the true value of wealth? What was the purpose of everything he had built? He had always believed money was only a tool, never the goal. Now that belief felt more important than ever. He thought about the future. He was not young anymore. Time moved faster now. He wanted to make sure that when his time came, his life would mean something beyond land and money. He wanted his choices to reflect the values he believed in. Over the following weeks, the old man and the woman crossed paths occasionally. Sometimes they exchanged a few words, sometimes only a nod. Each small interaction added to a quiet connection built on respect, not need. The village, however, remained the same. People continued to judge by appearance. Some noticed the woman helping the old man and whispered among themselves. They questioned her intentions. She ignored them. She had learned long ago that kindness did not need approval. The old man noticed these reactions. He saw how quickly people doubted goodness. Instead of feeling anger, he felt clarity. The contrast between her behavior and everyone else's told him everything he needed to know. One afternoon, the old man felt unwell again. This time, he managed to reach home before collapsing onto his chair. His body was weak and his breathing was slow. He rested, knowing he needed to take better care of himself. He did not want to become dependent on anyone, especially her. As he recovered, he made quiet plans. Not rushed decisions, but thoughtful ones. He began organizing his affairs, reviewing documents, and considering the future of his land. No one in the village noticed these changes. The woman continued her life, unaware of the thoughts she inspired. To her, the old man was simply someone who deserved respect. Nothing more, nothing less. As weeks passed, the bond between them remained quiet but strong. It was not built on favors or promises, but on simple humanity. The old man understood now that true character revealed itself in moments when no reward was expected. Standing at his doorway one evening, watching the sky darken, he felt certain of one thing. Meeting her was not an accident. It was a reminder. A test, perhaps. And the result was clear. The story of their connection was still unfolding. The village did not yet know what was coming. For now, the old man remained just another figure walking slowly through the streets, and the woman remained unaware that her kindness had already set something much bigger in motion. Time moved quietly, but change was slowly building beneath the surface. The old man's health became more fragile, even though he tried to hide it. Some mornings, getting out of bed felt harder than before. His hands trembled when he held his cup, and his breathing often felt heavy. Still, he refused to complain. He believed dignity mattered even in weakness. He reduced his walks through the village, choosing shorter paths and resting more often. People noticed his absence, but did not question it. To them, he was never important enough to worry about. Life went on, busy and loud, while his world grew quieter. One afternoon, the woman noticed she had not seen him for several days. At first, she thought nothing of it. But as more days passed, a feeling of concern settled in her heart. She remembered how weak he had looked the last time they spoke. That memory would not leave her. After finishing her work one evening, she decided to walk toward the edge of the village. She did not know exactly where he lived, but she remembered the direction he often walked. The path was calm, lined with dried land and scattered trees. As she walked, doubts crossed her mind. She wondered if she was overthinking, but she kept going. When she finally reached his small house, she paused. The place looked silent. No lights, no movement. For a moment, she hesitated, not wanting to intrude. Then she gently knocked on the door. There was no response at first. She knocked again, this time louder. Inside, the old man stirred slowly. He had been resting, exhausted, his body heavy with fatigue. Hearing the knock surprised him. No one ever visited him. He managed to stand and open the door. When he saw her, his eyes widened slightly. He had not expected her to come. He tried to smile, but his weakness showed clearly. She noticed immediately. Without asking too many questions, she stepped inside and asked if he was feeling well. The house was simple and clean but bare. She could see he had been struggling. He admitted that he had not been feeling strong lately. She offered to prepare something warm for him. He tried to refuse, saying he did not want to trouble her. She gently reminded him that helping each other was not trouble. Her words were firm but kind. As she moved around the small kitchen area, she noticed how little he had. Everything was modest and old. Still, the place felt peaceful. She prepared a simple meal and made sure he ate slowly. While he rested, she cleaned a little, opened windows, and let fresh air inside. None of it was dramatic. It was quiet care, given without hesitation. The old man watched her from his chair, feeling something tighten in his chest. Not pain, but emotion. For the first time in many years, he felt truly looked after. Not because he was rich or powerful, but because he was human. That realization touched him deeply. As the evening passed, she asked if he had anyone who checked on him. He shook his head. He had chosen this life, he said. She nodded, respecting his honesty, but her concern did not fade. She promised to check on him again. Not as an obligation, but because she wanted to. Before leaving, she made sure he was comfortable and reminded him to rest. After she left, the old man sat quietly. His heart was full. He realized he could no longer pretend that her presence meant nothing. Her kindness had gone beyond a simple moment. It had become care. That night, he made an important decision. He knew his time was limited. He wanted to ensure that his life's work would go to someone who understood the value of humanity, not greed. Over the next few days, he contacted people he trusted outside the village. Quiet conversations took place. Documents were reviewed. Plans were adjusted. Everything was done carefully and privately. Meanwhile, the woman continued visiting him when she could. She brought food, checked on his health, and sometimes simply sat and talked. She never asked for anything. She never treated him differently. The village began to notice her visits. Some people grew curious. Others grew suspicious. They wondered why she would spend time helping an old man who seemed to have nothing. Whispers spread. Assumptions were made. Still, she ignored them. She had learned that doing the right thing often came with judgment. The old man noticed the change in people's behavior. He saw how quickly kindness attracted attention when there was suspicion involved. It strengthened his resolve. One evening, after the woman left, the old man felt extremely weak. He sat in silence, breathing slowly, thinking deeply. He was not afraid. He felt prepared. He looked around his small home and reflected on his life. The land he had worked, the wealth he had built, the people he had observed, everything led to this moment. He realized that the greatest harvest of his life was not his crops, but the understanding of human nature. And among all the people he had met, one person stood apart as night fell. The village remained unaware that something important was nearing its moment. The old man rested quietly, holding on to the peace that kindness had given him, while the woman returned to her modest home. Unaware that her life was about to change forever, the morning arrived quietly, but something felt different in the air. The old man did not wake up at his usual time. His body was tired, and his breathing was slow and deep. He remained in bed longer than usual, listening to the soft sounds outside. Birds moved between trees, and the village slowly came alive, unaware of what was about to unfold. Later that day, the woman followed her routine as always. She worked, stayed busy, and tried not to think too much. Still, her thoughts kept returning to the old man. She remembered how weak he had looked during her last visit. A feeling of worry stayed with her. When she finished her work earlier than expected, she decided to check on him again. She told herself it would be quick, just to see if he was all right. As she walked toward his small house, her steps felt heavier than usual. When she reached the house, she noticed the door was slightly open. That was unusual. Her heart began to race. She gently called out to him, but there was no answer. She stepped inside slowly, calling again. She found him resting in his chair. His eyes were closed, his face calm. For a moment, she felt relief, thinking he was only sleeping. Then she noticed the stillness. She moved closer, gently touching his hand. It was cold. Tears filled her eyes as the truth settled in. He had passed away peacefully. There was no fear on his face, no struggle, only quiet rest. She stood there silently, holding his hand, overwhelmed by emotion. She did not scream or panic. Instead, she sat beside him, giving him the respect he deserved. After some time, she went to inform the village authorities. Word spread quickly. People gathered outside the small house. Many were shocked, not by his death, but by the attention it suddenly brought. Officials arrived. Documents were found. Phone calls were made. Soon, the truth began to unfold. The old man was not poor. He was not helpless. He was the owner of large farmlands beyond the village. He had wealth, savings, and property that most people could not imagine. He had lived quietly by choice, watching, waiting, understanding. The village was stunned. The same people who once ignored him now spoke of him with respect. Some felt guilt. Others felt regret. Many wondered how they had been so blind. The woman stood quietly among them, confused and overwhelmed. She never knew. Not once did she suspect. Days later, the reading of his will was announced. People gathered full of curiosity and hope. Some expected rewards. Others expected nothing. The woman did not plan to attend. She felt it was not her place, but she was asked to be there. When the will was read, silence filled the room. The old man had left clear instructions. He spoke through his words, calm and firm. He wrote about his life, his choices, and his decision to live simply. He wrote about watching people and learning who they truly were when no one was looking. Then he wrote about kindness. He mentioned a woman who helped him, without knowing anything about him. A woman who shared her food, her time, and her care when she had little herself. A woman who treated him like a human being. The woman's hands trembled as she listened. Tears rolled down her face. The old man left his land, his home, and a large part of his wealth to her. Not as a reward, but as trust. He believed she would use it with the same kindness she had shown him. The room reacted with shock. Some people protested. Others stayed silent, ashamed. The decision was final. The woman struggled to accept it. She felt unworthy. But deep down, she understood. This was not about money. It was about values. In time, her life changed. She did not become loud or proud. She used the land wisely, helped others quietly, and stayed true to herself. The village changed too. Slowly. People began to remember the lesson the old man left behind. Kindness given freely is never wasted. The old man was gone, but his message lived on, written not in words alone, but in the life he chose and the heart he trusted. Life did not change overnight, even though everything was different. After the old man was laid to rest, the village slowly returned to its routines. Shops opened, fields were worked, and children played in the streets. On the surface, it all looked the same, but inside many hearts, something had shifted. The woman stayed quiet during those days. She did not celebrate, explain, or defend herself. The attention made her uncomfortable. She continued waking up early, working hard, and living simply. The land and wealth left to her felt heavy, not exciting. She understood they were not gifts, but responsibility. People watched her closely. Some expected her to change, to dress differently, to act important. Others waited for mistakes. She noticed the looks, but she did not react. She remembered the old man's calm nature and tried to carry it forward. She began by visiting the farmlands. For the first time, she saw how large they were. The fields stretched far, filled with crops grown by people who depended on the land for their living. Many workers were nervous when they met her. They did not know what kind of owner she would be. She spoke gently and listened more than she talked. She asked about their needs, their families, and their work. She made no promises she could not keep. Slowly, the fear faded. They saw that she was fair and honest. Instead of changing everything, she kept most things the same. She believed stability mattered. Small improvements were made where needed. Tools were repaired. Working conditions were improved little by little. It was not dramatic, but it was meaningful. At the old man's small house, she spent time alone. She cleaned it carefully, keeping it simple. She did not turn it into something grand. She felt his presence there, not as a ghost, but as a memory of values. Sometimes she sat quietly, thinking about the first day she helped him. She wondered how close she came to walking past him like everyone else. That thought stayed with her. The village struggled with its own reflection. Some people felt regret. Others tried to hide it. A few changed their behavior, becoming kinder, more aware. Not everyone learned, but enough did to matter. There were moments of difficulty. Legal matters, paperwork, and responsibility brought stress. She felt overwhelmed at times. On those days, she remembered the old man's patience. She reminded herself that rushing never solved anything. She chose to help quietly. A family struggling with medical costs received support without public attention. A student who wanted to study received help without being made an example. She believed dignity mattered more than praise. Some people accused her of being secretive. Others accused her of not doing enough. She accepted that not everyone would understand. She had learned that true kindness rarely pleased everyone. Months passed. Seasons changed. The land continued to grow, and so did her confidence. She learned to balance strength with humility. One evening, while walking near the fields, she met an elderly worker who reminded her of the old man. He spoke slowly and carefully. She listened patiently. That moment confirmed she was walking the right path. The old man's story began to travel beyond the village. People spoke about the lesson, not the money. Some came hoping for help. She met them with honesty. She helped where she could and said no, where she could not. She never spoke badly about the village or the people who ignored the old man. She believed blame only kept wounds open. Instead, she focused on building something better. Years later, the village looked different. Not richer, but kinder. Small gestures became more common. People remembered the quiet old man who tested their hearts without saying a word. The woman never forgot that her life changed not because she helped a rich man, but because she helped a human being. She often said very little when asked about her success. She only said that kindness should never depend on reward. And in that simple belief, the old man's legacy continued, not in land or money, but in the way people treated each other when no one was watching. Years passed quietly, the way deep changes often do. The village no longer spoke about the old man every day, but his presence was still felt in small ways. People greeted one another more often. They paused when someone struggled. Not everyone had changed, but enough had for the village to feel different. There were days when her body felt heavy and her thoughts wandered into the past. She remembered her younger self, tired and uncertain, helping an old man by the road without thinking twice. That version of herself felt both distant and close. The village faced new challenges as time passed. Younger people left to explore opportunities elsewhere. Some returned, others did not. Change brought uncertainty, but also growth. The woman encouraged people to accept change without losing their values. She believed that kindness was not tied to place. It traveled with people. Those who left carried the lesson with them, whether they realized it or not. One afternoon, a group of young villagers asked her to speak about the old man. They wanted to understand why his story mattered so much. She agreed, but spoke simply. She said the old man did not test people on purpose. He simply lived honestly. People revealed themselves through their choices. That was the lesson. The young listeners sat quietly. Some nodded, some looked thoughtful. The story settled into them slowly. As seasons changed, her health weakened further. She accepted help more often now. She smiled when others insisted on carrying things for her. She had learned how hard it was to receive what you once gave freely. She spent her evenings writing small notes, not instructions, but reflections. Thoughts about patience, listening, and responsibility. These notes were shared later, not as rules, but as guidance. The old man's small house remained standing. It was rarely entered, but often visited. People stopped there to think, to rest, or to remember. It had become a quiet symbol. One day, during a village gathering, someone asked what should be done with that house. Many ideas were shared. The woman listened and then said nothing for a long moment. Finally, she said the house should remain simple, not as a monument, but as a reminder. A reminder that humility mattered. Everyone agreed. Years later, when the woman could no longer attend gatherings, the village did not feel lost. Systems were in place. People trusted one another. They knew the direction. She spent her days near her home, watching life continue. Laughter, arguments, celebrations, and losses. All part of the same flow. One quiet morning, she asked to be taken to the edge of the fields. She wanted to see the land one last time. She stood there, supported gently. She felt content. She knew the future was safe, in hands shaped by kindness. Her life, like the old man's, would one day be told as a story. But more important than the story were the habits it left behind. Long after voices faded, the village would continue choosing patience over haste, understanding over judgment, and somewhere, perhaps far away, another tired old person would be helped by someone who remembered. Even without knowing why, that kindness should never wait for a reason.